Hey guys, it's already here to doing 9.0 Shadow Priest PvE guide. As always, if you find these guides useful or helpful in any ways, feel free to subscribe, as I do plan on doing more of these types of things in Shadowlands alongside other forms of content. So I really appreciate it and thank you for all that, and let's get right into this. Before I start talking about talents and all that, I first want to cover the changes from BFA to Shadowlands for the Shadow Priest. The biggest thing is definitely that Void form got completely reworked. Instead of it being how it used to be, where you would go into it and it would drain down and it would be like you kind of want to survive inside of it for as long as you can. It's now just a 1.5 minute cooldown and it lasts 15 seconds, and that's it, and that's just a cooldown. There's a talent that sort of does extend it, but we'll talk about that in a second. But pretty much now it's just a cooldown every 1.5 minutes. You still get Void Bolt in it. Nothing's really different in that case. The only difference is that you'll still be generating sanity inside that window instead of losing it. So it feels a lot different. In regards to spells that we got in the Unpruning, we got Desperate Prayer, which is nice. Just like another extra heal. We got Shadow Word Death baseline, which used to be a talent, so that's really nice. I don't think I'm missing anything. We got Devouring Plague, which is now one of our main abilities in our spender. The Shadow Priest is pretty much like a build spender class now, similar to like Ellie Shaman in that regard. So definitely feels a lot different, something to get used to. But if you have not played Shadow Priest for a while, or you've never really played Shadow Priest at all, it's a good time to come and learn, and it's really not that hard of a spec at all. The only hard thing is that if you played it before, it's hard to readjust to this new style, but it's not that difficult. And then as we're leveling, we'll get Power Infusion, which is a haste cooldown, which is really nice. Glad that got unpruned. So I think that's it for the unpruning for Shadow and the sort of general class changes. We can quickly jump into talents now. The nice thing about Shadow Priest for the raid is that you're going to be going with essentially one talent build the entire time. So it's not like Affliction Warlock or Elemental Shaman or other specs where you need tomes and you need to change talents every other fight and all that. No, Shadow Priest, you're gonna run this build the entire raid and it'll be just fine. And that consists of Fortress of the Mind, which is more Mind Flay and Mind Blast damage, and they also generate more insanity. Awesome, it's all great. This row doesn't matter, but Body and Soul is just a nice little movement speed increase, so that's nice. You always run Misery, which makes it so you don't have to, since our dots aren't being constantly reapplied by the old Void Bolt. This just makes it so reapplying your dots is easier, and the benefit that you get from Twisted Fate is not big enough that Misery ends up taking this row here. So you go Misery, this row doesn't matter, it's utility. The row 40, you go Auspicious Spirits, mainly because of the synergy between that and our Azerite Traits, which we will talk about in a minute, but this is 100% the go-to for every single fight in the raid. And this row you go Mindbender, just like the last row. It's just the best. There's really nothing to say about these talents. Like Damnation and Void Turn are good talents, but they're just not they're not outperforming Mindbender. So there's no reason to not go Mindbender. Both in the Sims and just from what the data that we have from the 2 weeks or so that pre-patch has been out. So Mindbender's a play. And finally you go Hungering Void, which is the new talent. The only new talent in this tree that we're going to be taking besides Fortress of the Mind, and that is Void Bolt causes the target to become vulnerable. So pretty much, instead of reading it all, every single time you Void Bolt, which is usable in your Void Eruption, so I'll Void Erupt real quick, and then now we have access to Void Bolt for 15 seconds. Whenever you Void Bolt, if it crits, it extends the timing on your Void form by 2 seconds. So right now it's at 9 seconds. If I hit it, if it crits, that didn't crit, so it's 7 seconds. What is critting? So 8, 6, 5, 7. See how it's going up? Because it's critting. 5. And this will affect our stat weights and what we want. It'll lean a little bit more towards crit. We were pretty much already stacking crit before the pre-patch, so it's not really that big of a deal if you already had a character that's Shadow Priest. So that's pretty much all that really does. It's just 10% increased damage during your Void form as long as you're spamming Void Bolt, and it also has the chance to extend your Void form by 1 if it doesn't crit, and then by 2 if it does. So really, really good talent in both single target and cleave situations. And yeah, this is our go-to the entire raid. Just take this and you're set. And then in regards to Mythic Plus, will pretty much remain the same, except you'll swap out Death and Madness for Fortress of the Mind, and you'll just run this setup. The reason you want to run Death and Madness is that you're going to be using Shadow Word Death anyways, since it is baseline now. And the fact that you can use it, since mobs are constantly dying in Mythic Plus, you can constantly use it and get a ton of sanity, which allows you to put out more Devouring Plagues, more damage. It's really great. Unfurling Darkness is viable if you find it a really fun talent. It is also a new talent. Pretty much it makes it so whenever you cast VT every 15 seconds, your next VT is instant and does more damage, which is nice for trying to dot targets faster, and also increases the little burst of damage, which is nice. However, technically Death and Madness is better, but again, like I said, if you really prefer this playstyle, that's totally fine. It's not a giant deal of difference. And also some noteworthy talents are Searing Nightmare is a really good talent in specific situations where you know you're going to be pulling it ginormous. Now, you're probably not going to take this for most cases, but it is a really fun talent. The thing that makes it annoying is that you have to be casting Mindseer in order to press it, so you can't just press it and on the move or anything. You have to be sitting channeling Mindseer, which is kind of a nuisance in a lot of cases. It's not really something you want to sit there and be doing, because there's a lot of mechanics you need to dodge in Mythic Plus, and you can't really stay stable at all times. So it does a lot of damage, especially on a lot of targets, if you can manage to stand still and cast it, but for most cases, going Misery is just going to be the better play. So that's the take on that. And that's pretty much talents. That's a lot of talents. Again, if you are running single target, or if you're just in the raid in general, for every fight in the raid, you're going to run Fortress, Misery, and that's it. And then Mindbender, Auspicious, and Hungry Void. And then Mythic Plus, Death and Madness, or Unfurling, Misery, or Searing, and then everything else will pretty much remain the same. You can run Surrender on Mythic Plus if you're trying to have fun. It is pretty good, but it's kind of like the situation where you need to pull around it. So if you're doing Pugs, or if you're just doing sort of chill Mythic Plus, Hungry Void's always going to be the better play. So that's talents. We can move on to Azerite Traits next. Azerite Traits are super simple, and again, just like talents, you're going to use the same thing for everything, and also you will use these same traits for Raid and Mythic Plus. These traits are the best for everything. You don't need to switch it out. It's going to be triple Spiteful Apparitions, which just increases your Spiteful Apparition damage, which is obviously great and has really good synergy with this talent, Auspicious Spirits. So you want 3 of those. You want 2 Heart of Darkness, which just increases all of your secondary stats by a certain amount depending on the item level of your Azerite. And then you're going to want 1 Whisper of the Damned, which makes it so your Mind Blast does a little bit more damage and also generates more insanity if you crit. So that's really nice. So triple Spiteful, double Heart of Darkness, and 1 Whisper. That is Biss, and that's what you want to go for if you can. Touching on Essences real quick. Your go-to setup for the raid, or single target more specifically, single target is Slight Cleave, so pretty much, Rathian, Mott, Skitra, Xanash. Most fights where you're focusing on a single target, but you are dotting other things, you're going to run this build, where it's Condensed Life Force, Focusing Iris Minor, Memory Minor, and Crucible Minor. This is your go-to for majority of fights in the raid. A fight like Hive Mind, or maybe even Vexiona, if you feel like padding, pretty much what I'm trying to say, you can swap out Blood the Enemy for Condensed Life Force, and that just will increase the amount of, and you can just use it when the Hive Mind ads come out, or the Vexiona ads, and you'll do a lot of burst damage, but again, like I just said, it's pad, so if you're trying to just do damage and not pad, just trying to kill bosses, just go this build. Also, if you know you're going to be switching targets a lot, you can swap out Conflict and Strife for Focusing Iris, since Focusing Iris is really only good if you're focusing on one target. Yeah, that's pretty much it for that. In the Mythic Plus, you're going to run the same setup, except instead of Condensed Life Force, you're going to go Blood, and instead of Essence of Focusing Iris, you can either go Conflict and Strife, or you can go Breath of the Dying. Since you're constantly switching targets in Mythic Plus, it don't really have a focus target except for bosses. Focusing Iris is really not good at all, so this is the setup you want to be looking at for that. That's pretty much it for traits and essences. Let's talk about stats real quick. Similar to my last video, I'm going to start just putting the stats on the screen after when I'm editing the video, and then you can, so I'll talk about it, and then in case it doesn't register verbally, you'll have a physical idea of what the stats should be looking like too. So it should be anywhere from 30 to 35% crit. Like I was saying earlier, crit is a giant deal still for Shadow Priests because of the Hungering Void talent. The more you're critting during your Void form, the longer your Void form lasts, which means the more damage you're doing, and the more insanity you're generating, which also means the more damage you're doing. So everything from crit is great right now, but just like I've been saying in other videos too, because of the stat squish, because of the stat nerf, you don't want to go above 35% or else there's a hard diminishing return on it. So get as close to 35 as you can, and then stop and start putting stats into other places, like 25 to 30% haste. You don't want to go above 30% haste, but you also don't really want to be below 25. It's not ideal. If you do, it's not a giant deal, because haste isn't our best stat, but it's certainly our second best stat. So anywhere from 25 to 30 and you're fine. Mastery, you want to be anywhere from 10 to 15. Our mastery is a big deal because it's so easy to maintain. It's just a ton of free damage. It's just as long as you have up all of your dots. What was I gonna say? Your damage is increased by 12% for each Shadow Word, Pain, Vampiric Touch, and Divine Plague on the target during Void form. All targets receive the maximum effect. So, as long as you have all three of your dots on the target, you will do more damage. It's essentially what it means. So that's why maintaining your Divine Plague is such a big deal, and your resource management is kind of the min-maxing of this spec now, which is a lot different from how it used to be because it was just trying to stay in Void form. And then finally, you want to be anywhere from 5 to 10% verse, obviously because it's just free damage and it's nice, and you don't want to have too much because it has hard diminishing returns. Versatility has always had that though, so that's nothing new. And then touching on Trinkets real quick, I say it every video, every caster wants Compendium of Storms because it has that baseline int, which every caster wants right now. And then it also has the constant and pretty bountiful haste proc, so that's really nice. And then you want to go Manifesto because of the large amount of crit you get during your burst, and obviously that crit's going to scale really well because you can use it on your opener and you can use it in your Void form, and it's a perfect, they line up perfectly well. This is at 1.5 minute cooldown, and this is a 1.5 minute cooldown, so you should be using your Manifesto every single Void form and essentially like doubling or tripling your crit, and then you'll extend your Void form. It'll be great. It's a perfect trinket right now for Shadow Priests. And that's pretty much it. If you don't have like a Manifesto, for example, Avita is a good replacement. Psyche Shredder is not bad. All those 4 trinkets are good, but if possible, you want to try and get a Manifesto and a Compendium of Storms. So I think that's really everything I'm touching on the character itself. We can quickly do an opener / rotation and spell priority little mini guide here. So you want to always open with your VT. Again, you never want to cast Shadowborn Pain in this build because you're running Misery on every fight, and if you need to replace your dots, just cast Vampiric Touch because you're going to just refresh them both. So you're going to end up doing a full timer. When it's around 2 to 1, you want to start casting Vampiric Touch, and I'm going to go slow, just so it's kind of clear. Vampiric Touch into Mind Blast, and then you want to use your Condensed Life Force, you want to use your Mind Bender, and you want to Void Erupt, and then use your Manifesto immediately. You get a Divine Plague, so your Mastery starts proccing, and then you want to spam Void Bolt on cooldown, as well as keeping Mind Blast off cooldown, and then keeping all 3 dots on the target. And then you want to try and not cap Insanity if possible. However, you are going to get Memory procs, which might make that difficult sometimes because of the randomness of it. But that's really all it is. And then you want to make sure you just keep up your 3 dots at all times. And then after Void Form's over, you're going to want to keep Shadow Word Death off cooldown. However, it's not worth to use it in Void Form. So now we're out of Void Form, so I'll use Shadow Word Death. And then now, just doing the same thing, keeping Mind Blast off cooldown and maintaining dots, and then using Mind Flay as a filler. It's super easy. It's a very easy spec right now. On Cleave or two or three targets like Mott, it's the same rotation, except the only difference is that you're going to want to do your single target rotation, but then maintain your Vampiric Touch and your Shadow Word Pain on the other target. Use Shadow Word Death on cooldown, Mindbender on cooldown, and then yeah, I mean, Shadow Priest is doing a lot of damage right now. It's essentially the best class in pre-patch right now because it's slightly overtuned, which it's no indication of how it's going to play in Shadowlands, but it is definitely a lot of fun to play now. So if you just feel like curb stomping your guildies and on some bosses in the raid or doing some Mythic Plus, I recommend playing this class or Spec a lot. It's a lot of fun right now. So we have Void Form coming back up and Manifesto's coming up back, obviously. So we can start getting those crits, start extending our Void Form. And then yeah, I mean, it's pretty much just rinse and repeat from here. What I always tell people who need to practice a new spec they're playing, or if they're having trouble with the rotation, is to sit at a target dummy like this for hours. As long as you got nothing going on in your day, just sit and do this. Like, buy some drums from the auction house, put on a movie or a show or something you enjoy doing, and just do this. And you'll see the improvement you'll get from it just from a few hours a day, or if you don't have time for that, just, I don't know, 15 minutes a day is incredible. If you truly care about improving how your play is on a certain spec, just muscle memory and just spamming a dummy the changes you'll see are crazy. It's just like how if you're trying to improve your aim, you'll use an aim the aimbot Steam game. You'll just do that for 20 minutes a day and you'll see your aim improve. It's the same thing with this. It's all muscle memory, it's all practice. So that's what I always try to tell people is just practice, and you'll be great at it. Especially nowadays with how many resources there are with Warcraft logs and guides and websites. There's really no reason that you can't improve. So just put time into it and you'll see great things come out of it. If you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to leave them in the comments below, or you can message me in game. I'm on a lot. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, as I said earlier in the video, if you could subscribe, that'd be amazing. I plan on doing more stuff like this alongside other content. I'm going to be doing like class overviews on bosses and the new raid. I'll be doing with the plus guides. I'll be doing all kinds of stuff. I can't wait for what Shadowlands is going to be looking like. So I hope you guys come join me for the ride. Take care, guys. Have a great day.